I should have been dead. The memory was crystal clear, lying in that sterile hospital bed, watching David adjust my IV drip with such tender care, while the nurses praised him as the most devoted husband they'd ever seen. The way he'd whispered, "I love you," as the poison coursed through my veins, his handsome face the last thing I saw before everything went black. But somehow, I was staring at my apartment ceiling, sunlight streaming through the familiar crack in the blinds. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. March 15th, 2018. The day that had started it all. "Sarah, breakfast is ready!" My roommate Lisa's voice carried from the kitchen, bright and cheerful in a way that made my chest tighten. She'd been dead for 3 years in my other life. A car accident that wasn't really an accident, though no one ever suspected David's involvement. I sat up slowly, my 24-year-old body moving with an ease I'd forgotten. No chronic fatigue, no mysterious joint pain, no unexplained memory lapses. All the symptoms David had gradually induced over our marriage were gone. I was young, healthy, and, most importantly, I remembered everything. The shower water ran cold, but I barely noticed. My mind was racing, cataloguing every detail, every warning sign I'd missed the first time. Today was supposed to be the day David proposed, the day I said yes to my own destruction, blinded by his charm and my naive belief in true love. "You look different," Lisa observed when I emerged from my room, toweling my dark hair. She was perched at our tiny kitchen counter, already dressed for her marketing job in a crisp blazer. "Older, somehow. Did you have nightmares again?" If only she knew. "Something like that," I said, accepting the coffee she offered. The normalcy of it all felt surreal. Lisa, alive and vibrant, myself unmarked by years of systematic poisoning, the future still unwritten. "Don't forget, David's picking you up at 6 for your anniversary dinner." Lisa grinned, nudging my shoulder. 3 years together. I have such a good feeling about tonight. My stomach clenched. She was right to have good feelings. This was the night David would get down on one knee at the city's most expensive restaurant, the ring already purchased, the proposal perfectly orchestrated to seem spontaneous. I'd cried happy tears, called my mother immediately, posted photos that got hundreds of likes. I'd been so stupidly, tragically happy. "Actually," I said carefully, setting down my coffee cup, "I'm thinking of breaking up with him." Lisa nearly choked on her orange juice. "What? Sarah, are you insane? David is perfect. He's handsome, successful, he treats you like a princess." "Does he?" I interrupted, my voice sharper than intended. Lisa blinked in surprise, and I forced myself to soften my tone. "I mean, does he really? When's the last time he asked what I wanted to do? What movie I wanted to see? What restaurant I preferred? When's the last time he showed genuine interest in my job, my friends, my dreams that don't revolve around him?" Lisa frowned, clearly trying to think of examples. The silence stretched between us, and I could see doubt creeping into her expression. He's just confident," she finally said, but her voice lacked conviction. "He knows what's best." "For who?" I stood up, pacing to the window. Our apartment overlooked a busy street, people rushing to work, living their lives, making choices. "Lisa, can you name 3 things David knows about me that I didn't tell him directly? My favourite colour, my biggest fear, what I wanted to be when I was a kid?" The longer silence that followed was answer enough. "Sarah," Lisa said quietly, "where is this coming from? Yesterday, you were showing me wedding dress photos on Pinterest." Had I been? The memories of this timeline were hazy, overlaid with the traumatic clarity of my other life. But yes, I remembered now. The excited planning, the naive dreams of our perfect future. It felt like watching someone else's life. Someone who didn't know she was signing her own death warrant. My phone buzzed. A text from David. "Can't wait for tonight, beautiful. I have a surprise that will change everything." He had no idea how right he was. "I need to go," I said, grabbing my purse and keys. "I'm going to be late for work." "Sarah, wait." Lisa caught my arm, her eyes concerned. "Promise me you'll think this through. Don't throw away something good because you're scared of commitment." If only she knew what I was really scared of. "I promise I'll think it through," I said, and it wasn't a lie. I'd been thinking it through for 20 years. The marketing firm where I worked buzzed with its usual morning energy. My cubicle felt like a time capsule. Photos of David and me at various events. A small cactus he'd given me that I'd somehow kept alive. Sticky notes with his little messages. Evidence of a relationship I'd thought was built on love, but was actually constructed from manipulation and control. "Morning, Sarah." My colleague Amanda bounced over, coffee in hand. "Ready for the big night? I heard David made reservations at Lumiere. That place has a 3-month waiting list." "How did you know about that?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "Oh, he mentioned it when he called yesterday to make sure you wouldn't work late. Isn't that sweet? He's so thoughtful." Sweet. Thoughtful. Always making sure I was exactly where he expected me to be, when he expected me to be there. In my first life, I'd been flattered by his attention to my schedule. Now I recognized it for what it was. Surveillance disguised as care. My computer chimed with an email from David. "Darling, I've arranged for a car to pick you up at 5:30. Wear the blue dress. You know how beautiful you look in blue." The blue dress. The one he'd bought me. That fit his aesthetic preferences perfectly, but made me feel like I was playing dress-up. I'd worn it to please him, like I'd done so many things to please him, slowly erasing myself in the process. Not this time. I deleted the email and opened a new document. My resignation letter took exactly 10 minutes to write. I'd been planning to leave this job anyway when David proposed to focus on being the perfect wife. Another dream deferred, another piece of my independence sacrificed on the altar of his ego. My manager, Rebecca, looked surprised when I knocked on her office door. "Sarah, everything okay?" "I need to give my notice," I said, handing her the letter. 2 weeks, as per policy." Rebecca scanned the document, her eyebrows rising. "This is very sudden. Is everything all right? Are you taking another position?" "I'm starting my own business," I said, the words surprising me even as I spoke them. But yes, that's exactly what I was going to do. With 20 years of experience compressed into a 24-year-old's body, I had advantages I'd never had before. "What kind of business?" "Digital marketing consulting. I have some ideas that I think could be revolutionary." Revolutionary. Like targeted social media algorithms that wouldn't exist for another 5 years. Like influencer marketing strategies that were still in their infancy. Like cryptocurrency promotion that would make early adopters millionaires. Rebecca leaned back in her chair, studying me with new interest. "You know, we've been talking about expanding our digital services. Would you be interested in freelancing for us? We could offer you a consulting contract." "I'll consider it," I said, already knowing I'd accept. It would be perfect. Steady income while I built my client base, and credibility when I started making predictions that seemed impossibly prescient. My phone rang as I walked back to my desk. David's name flashed on the screen, along with a photo of us from last Christmas. Him looking perfect in a designer sweater, me smiling adoringly up at him like a lovesick fool. "Hello, David." "Sarah, darling, you sound strange. Is everything all right?" His voice was honey smooth, tinged with just the right amount of concern. In my previous life, that tone had made me melt, eager to reassure him that everything was fine. Now I heard the calculated nature of it, the way he modulated his voice to get the desired emotional response. "I'm fine, just tired." "Poor sweetheart, you've been working too hard. After tonight, things will be different. I promise." After tonight, when I became his fiancée, when he gained the legal and social standing to control more aspects of my life, when his protection could become more overt without raising red flags. David, about tonight. I know you're nervous, he interrupted, that gentle laugh that used to charm me now sounding patronising. But trust me, I know exactly what you need. The audacity of that statement hit me like a physical blow. He knew exactly what I needed. Not what I wanted, what I needed. As if I were a child incapable of making my own decisions. Actually, I said, my voice steady, I think I know what I need better than anyone else. Silence on the other end. Then, Sarah, you're worrying me. You don't sound like yourself. Maybe you never really knew who I was. Another pause, longer this time. When he spoke again, his tone had shifted subtly, still smooth, still concerned, but with an edge of something harder underneath. Sweetheart, I think you need to come home. You sound confused, maybe a little hysterical. I can pick you up. I'm at work, David. I'm fine. Are you sure? Because Lisa called me this morning, very concerned about some things you said, about us breaking up. He gave a little laugh, but it didn't reach his eyes, even over the phone. Darling, we both know you don't mean that. You love me. We're perfect together. Lisa had called him. Of course she had. Not because she was malicious, but because David had spent 3 years positioning himself as the expert on my mental state, the only one who could handle my episodes. Even my best friend had been trained to report my aberrant behaviour to him. I have to go, I said. I'll talk to you later. Sarah, don't hang up. I ended the call and immediately blocked his number. Then, I walked to the bathroom and splashed cold water on my face, staring at my reflection in the harsh fluorescent light. 24 years old, unmarked by years of gaslighting and slow poisoning, strong, healthy, and armed with knowledge that would make me wealthy beyond my wildest dreams. David thought he was going to propose tonight, but I had a different surprise in mind. It was time to build the life I should have had the first time around. The restaurant was everything David had promised. Expensive, romantic, dimly lit with crystal chandeliers and white tablecloths. I arrived 15 minutes late, wearing jeans and a simple sweater instead of the blue dress he'd requested. David was already seated at our usual corner table, the one he always reserved because it photographed well. His face brightened when he saw me, then immediately clouded with confusion. You look... He paused, clearly recalibrating. Casual. I look like myself, I replied, sliding into the chair across from him. No kiss hello, no apology for being late. In my previous life, I would have been flustered, apologetic, eager to please. I thought you'd wear the blue dress. You know how stunning you look in blue. I know how much you like me in blue, I corrected. There's a difference. Something flickered across his handsome features. Annoyance, maybe, or the first hint of unease. David was a man who relied on predictable responses, and I wasn't giving him any. You've been acting strange all day, he said, reaching across the table to take my hand. Talk to me. What's wrong? His touch used to send shivers up my arm. Now it felt cold, calculated. I pulled my hand back and folded both of mine in my lap. Nothing's wrong. I'm just thinking clearly for the first time in 3 years. About what? His smile was patient, indulgent, the expression of a man humouring an overwrought child. About us. About what I want from my life. About whether this relationship is actually making me happy. The words hung in the air between us like a challenge. David's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, but his voice remained gentle. Of course you're happy. We're perfect together. Everyone says so. Everyone says so, I repeated. But what do I say? What do I want? You want what any woman wants. Love, security, a future with someone who adores you. He leaned forward, his blue eyes intense. Sarah, where is this coming from? Yesterday, you were showing me wedding venues on your phone. Had I been? The memories of this timeline felt hazy, overlaid with the sharp clarity of my other life. But I remembered now. The eager planning, the breathless excitement about our future. It felt like watching a stranger's life unfold. Yesterday, I was a different person, I said quietly. People don't change overnight. No, they don't. They change slowly, over months and years, while the people around them pretend not to notice. The waiter appeared with champagne David had pre-ordered, and I watched him perform the ritual of approval and pouring with practiced ease. Everything about this evening had been choreographed, from the restaurant choice to the wine selection to the timing of what he planned to ask me. To us, David said, raising his glass. I didn't touch mine. David, tell me something. What's my favourite book? What kind of question is that? A simple one. We've been together 3 years. What's my favourite book? He frowned, clearly thrown by the shift in conversation. You read those romance novels sometimes? That's not an answer. What about my favourite movie? My biggest fear, the name of my first pet? Sarah, this is ridiculous. Is it? These are basic things people know about each other, things people who love each other pay attention to. I know everything important about you. His voice carried an edge now, the patient facade beginning to crack. Do you? What do I want to do with my career? What are my dreams that don't involve being your wife? Your career is fine, but once we're married... Once we're married? What? I leaned back in my chair, studying his face. I'll quit my job, stay home and focus on supporting your ambitions like you told Jessica I would. The colour drained from his face. When did I say that? Last month, at the networking event. I was standing right next to you, but you were so focused on impressing your colleagues that you forgot I existed. That's not... I didn't mean... Didn't you? Because it sounded very much like you'd already planned out my entire future without consulting me. David's composure was slipping now, his carefully constructed charm giving way to something harder underneath. Sarah, you're being paranoid. I love you. Everything I do is for us. Everything you do is for you. I'm just the accessory that makes you look good. That's not true. Isn't it? When's the last time you asked what I wanted to do on a date? When's the last time you showed genuine interest in my opinions, my feelings, my goals that don't revolve around making you happy? He opened his mouth to respond, then closed it again. The silence stretched between us, broken only by the soft murmur of other diners and the clink of crystal glasses. You're having some kind of breakdown, he said finally. This isn't like you. Maybe this is exactly like me, and you've just never bothered to notice. David's hand moved to his jacket pocket, the same gesture I remembered from my other life. The ring was there, waiting for the perfect moment in his perfectly planned proposal. I think we should go, he said abruptly. You're clearly not yourself tonight. I'm more myself than I've been in years. Sarah. His voice dropped to that intimate tone he used when he wanted to seem caring and concerned. You're scaring me. This paranoia, these wild accusations. Maybe you should talk to someone. A professional. There it was. The first attempt to undermine my credibility, to paint my newfound clarity as mental instability. In my previous life, this moment had been the beginning of years of gaslighting, of slowly convincing everyone around me that I was too fragile, too irrational, too unstable to trust my own perceptions. I'm not paranoid, David, I'm awake. You need help. What I need is a partner who sees me as an equal, not a project to be managed. I've never managed you. Haven't you? You choose our restaurants, our activities, our social circle. You monitor my schedule, screen my phone calls, have opinions about my clothes, my hair, my career choices. You've isolated me from friends who don't understand our relationship and convinced my family that you're the expert on my emotional state. Each word hit him like a physical blow. I could see him struggling to maintain control, to find the right response that would turn this conversation back in his favour. I take care of you because I love you, because you need someone strong to protect you. From what? From making mistakes, from people who would take advantage of your trusting nature, from yourself. The casual cruelty of that statement took my breath away. In my previous life, I'd been so worn down by his constant undermining that I'd actually believed it. I'd thought I was lucky to have someone willing to make decisions for me, to shelter me from the harsh realities of adult life. Now I saw it for what it was, the core belief that drove all his behaviour. I was a child in his eyes, incapable of independent thought or action. I don't need protection from myself, David. I need protection from you. His face went white, then red. That's a horrible thing to say. But it's true. I've given you everything. A beautiful relationship, financial security, a place in society. You've given me a gilded cage, and you're too ungrateful to appreciate it. The words came out harsh, bitter, closer to his real feelings than anything he'd said all evening. I stood up, reaching for my purse. Thank you for finally being honest. Where are you going? Home. Alone. Sarah, sit down. We're not finished. The command in his voice was unmistakable. This was the David most people never saw, the one who expected immediate obedience, who couldn't tolerate being denied or dismissed. Actually, we are finished. Completely. I walked away from the table, leaving him sitting there with his champagne and his carefully planned proposal, and his ring that would never find its way onto my finger. I could feel his eyes on my back, could practically hear the wheels turning as he tried to figure out how to regain control of the situation. My phone started buzzing before I reached the exit. David's name flashed on the screen again and again. I turned off the phone and dropped it into my purse. The night air was cool against my face as I stepped onto the sidewalk. Around me, the city pulsed with life. People walking dogs, couples holding hands, friends laughing over late dinners. Normal people living normal lives, making their own choices, following their own dreams. For the first time in 3 years, I felt like I could breathe. A text was waiting when I turned my phone back on an hour later. We need to talk. This isn't over. But it was over. I'd ended it the moment I walked out of that restaurant, leaving David Richmond sitting alone with his shattered expectations and wounded pride. I was finally free to become the person I was meant to be. The next morning, I would start building my empire. Tonight, I would simply celebrate the fact that I was alive, aware, and answerable to no one but myself. The future stretched ahead of me like an open road, and for the first time in either of my lives, I couldn't wait to see where it would lead. 2 weeks after walking away from David, I was sitting in a sleek downtown office, signing my 3rd major consulting contract. The client, a tech startup called Innovate Corp, had found me through word of mouth after my first successful campaign. Your predictions about micro-influencer marketing were spot on, said Rebecca Chen, their marketing director. Our engagement rates tripled in 10 days. I smiled, sliding the signed contract into my portfolio. Just wait until you see what targeted video content can do for your brand awareness. The irony wasn't lost on me. In 2018, most companies were still throwing money at traditional advertising while dismissing social media as a fad. But I knew what was coming. The algorithm changes, the rise of authentic content, the shift toward community-driven marketing that wouldn't peak for another 3 years. My phone buzzed as I left the building. Lisa's name flashed on the screen. Hey, I answered, stepping into the afternoon sunshine. We need to talk. Her voice was strained. Can you meet me at our usual place? 20 minutes later, I found Lisa hunched over a coffee at our favourite cafe, her face pale and drawn. David called me, she said before I'd even sat down. "He's really worried about you, Sarah. He thinks you're having some kind of breakdown." I ordered a latte from the passing server before responding. "What exactly did he say?" "That you've been following him, taking pictures, making up stories about him and Jessica." Lisa's eyes were red-rimmed, like she'd been crying. "He showed me some kind of medical article about early-onset paranoia in young women. The calculated cruelty of it took my breath away. David wasn't just trying to discredit me. He was systematically poisoning my closest friendship, using Lisa's genuine care for me as a weapon." "And you believe him?" "I don't know what to believe." Lisa's voice cracked. "3 weeks ago, you were planning your future with this man. Now you're acting like he's some kind of monster. People don't change that fast, Sarah." "Don't they?" I pulled out my phone and showed her my banking app. 3 weeks ago, I was making $36,000 a year. Look at this month's deposits. Lisa stared at the screen, her mouth falling open. $42,000 in 2 weeks. "My consulting business is booming. Clients are lining up because I can predict market trends with uncanny accuracy." I tucked the phone away. "Does that sound like the behavior of someone having a mental breakdown?" "But how did you know all this stuff? You never showed interest in marketing before." "I have always been interested. David just made me believe I wasn't smart enough to pursue it." The lie came easily, necessary to protect the impossible truth. "Turns out, I have pretty good instincts when someone isn't constantly telling me I'm wrong." Lisa fidgeted with her coffee cup, conflict written across her features. "He said you've been stalking him." "I hired a private investigator to document his relationship with Jessica. That's called gathering evidence, not stalking." I leaned forward. "Lisa, he was planning to propose to me while living with another woman." "How is exposing that considered harassment?" "Maybe they're just roommates. They share a bed. They have joint accounts. She's wearing his grandmother's necklace in half the photos." I kept my voice gentle but firm. "This isn't paranoia, Lisa. This is pattern recognition." My phone rang before Lisa could respond. Unknown number, but I recognized the lawyer's voice from yesterday. "Miss Mitchell, this is James Crawford again. My client is prepared to offer a settlement." I stepped away from the table. "What kind of settlement?" $50,000 in exchange for a signed non-disclosure agreement and your commitment to cease all communication about Mr. Richmond. He wants to pay me to stay quiet about his affair. My client denies any improper relationship. Then why is he offering hush money? I watched Lisa through the cafe window, saw her answering her own phone. "Let me make something clear, Mr. Crawford. I have no intention of harassing your client, but I also won't be silenced by legal threats or financial bribes. Miss Mitchell, I strongly advise you to consider..." I hung up and walked back to Lisa, who was just ending her own call. Her face had gone white. "That was Jessica," she said quietly. "She wants to meet me for lunch tomorrow." "To tell you how worried she is about my mental state?" Lisa nodded slowly. "How did you know?" "Because it's exactly what I'd do if I were trying to isolate someone from their support system." I sat back down, studying my best friend's troubled expression. "Lisa, think about this logically. If David is innocent, why is he working so hard to convince everyone I'm crazy? Why not just ignore me and let his actions speak for themselves?" "Maybe because you're damaging his reputation." "His reputation was built on lies. I'm just providing some clarity." Before Lisa could respond, my phone chimed with a new email. Another client referral, this one from a Fortune 500 company interested in my revolutionary approach to predictive marketing. I showed Lisa the screen. "This is from Hartwell Industries. They want to discuss a 6-figure consulting contract." 6 figures? Lisa's voice was barely a whisper. "I told you, I'm good at this." I closed my phone and reached across the table to squeeze her hand. Lisa, I know this is confusing. 3 weeks ago, I was a different person with different priorities. But that doesn't mean I'm mentally ill. It means I finally woke up. Lisa stared at our joined hands for a long moment. What really happened that night at the restaurant? I realised I was about to marry someone who didn't actually know me, someone who saw me as an accessory to his perfect life rather than a person with my own dreams and ambitions. But you seemed so happy. I seemed compliant. There's a difference. I released her hand and leaned back. Lisa, I need you to think about something. In all the time you've known David, has he ever asked about your life, your job, your family, your interests that don't relate to me? Lisa opened her mouth to answer, then closed it again. I could see her mentally reviewing 3 years of interactions, searching for evidence of David's interest in her as a person, rather than just his girlfriend's roommate. He's charming, she said finally. Charming isn't the same as caring. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Stop digging or you'll regret it. I deleted it without showing Lisa and made a mental note to change my number again. David was escalating, moving from manipulation to intimidation. In my previous life, this would have terrified me. Now it just confirmed I was on the right track. I should go, I said, standing and gathering my things. I have a conference call with potential investors in an hour. Investors? I'm expanding, hiring a team, maybe opening a proper office. I paused at her stunned expression. Lisa's success isn't always suspicious. Sometimes people really do turn their lives around. That evening, I was reviewing contracts in my apartment when someone knocked on my door. Through the peephole, I saw a woman I didn't recognise. Blonde, professional, expensive suit. Can I help you? I'm Jessica Way. I think it's time we talked. I opened the door but kept the chain latched. About what? About ending this vendetta before it destroys everyone involved. I'm not the one conducting a secret relationship while planning to propose to someone else. Jessica's composure cracked slightly. David and it's complicated. Adultery usually is. Look, I don't expect you to understand, but David and I have history. Real history. What you two had was what? Fake? A convenient placeholder until you figured out your feelings? Jessica's silence confirmed my suspicions. Here's what I understand, I continued through the gap in the door. You wanted David but weren't ready to commit, so he kept me around as backup while waiting for you to make up your mind. How romantic. It wasn't like that. Then explain it to me. Help me understand why a woman would let her lover propose to someone else if their relationship was real and meaningful. Jessica's face flushed red. Because I was scared. Because I'd been hurt before and wasn't ready to trust again. David was being patient, giving me time at my expense. You don't understand the pressure he was under. His family, his business partners, they all expected him to settle down, get married. You were perfect for that role. A role? I almost laughed. Not a relationship, not a partnership. A role in his life performance. I didn't mean it like that. You meant it exactly like that. I started to close the door. Thank you for the honesty. It's more than David ever gave me. Wait! Jessica caught the door with her hand. What do you want? Money? A recommendation for your business? Name your price. I want you and David to leave me alone so I can build my life without interference. And if we don't? The threat was implicit but clear. I looked Jessica in the eye, this woman who'd helped to orchestrate 3 years of deception and manipulation. Then you'll discover that underestimating me was a very expensive mistake. I closed the door firmly and turned both locks. Through the wood, I heard Jessica's heels clicking away down the hallway. My laptop chimed with another email. 3 more client inquiries, all referred by satisfied customers. Word was spreading about my uncanny ability to predict market trends and consumer behaviour. If only they knew the source of my intuition. As I worked late into the night, my phone stayed blissfully quiet. No more threatening texts, no more calls from David's lawyer, no more attempts at intimidation or manipulation, and they were finally learning what I discovered 2 weeks ago at that restaurant. I was no longer the person they thought they could control. I was someone entirely new, and I was just getting started. 6 months later, I stood in my new corner office overlooking the city, watching the morning news on the wall-mounted screen. The headline made me smile. Tech startup predicts market crash 3 months early. CEO credits revolutionary consulting firm. My assistant, Marcus, knocked and entered with my coffee. The Hartwell Industries contract is ready for your signature, and Channel 7 wants to schedule that interview about your market predictions. Schedule it for next week, I said, signing the 7-figure deal that would make my consulting firm the most sought after in the city. And, Marcus, start screening for additional staff. We're going to be very busy. Through my floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see David's office building 8 blocks away. His construction company had been hemorrhaging clients since word spread about his personal complications. Turns out, investors don't like CEOs who can't manage their own relationships. My phone buzzed with a text from Lisa. Saw you on the business news this morning. Dinner tonight to celebrate. I was typing a response when Marcus buzzed the intercom. Sarah, there are 2 people here to see you. They don't have an appointment, but they say it's urgent. Who are they? David Richmond and Jessica Way. I set down my phone, my pulse quickening. After months of silence, they'd finally come to me. Send them in. David entered first, and I was shocked by how much he'd aged. His golden hair was dishevelled, his expensive suit wrinkled, and dark circles shadowed his once bright eyes. Jessica followed behind him, her professional polish intact but brittle, like glass about to shatter. Sarah, David's voice was hoarse, thank you for seeing us. You have 5 minutes. I remained seated behind my desk, every inch the successful CEO they'd never imagined I could become. We want to call a truce, Jessica said, her words tumbling out in a rush. This war between us, it's destroying everyone. What war? I've been building my business. You've been living your lives. Where's the conflict? David stepped forward, his hands clasped like he was begging. Come on, Sarah. You know what you've been doing. The leaked information about our relationship, the whisper campaigns to my clients, The truth? I interrupted. David, I haven't had to sabotage you. You did that yourself the moment you decided to maintain 2 relationships simultaneously. We never meant for it to happen this way, Jessica said desperately. David was going to end things with you after the proposal, give you a generous settlement. A settlement for what? Being deceived and humiliated. I laughed, but there was no humour in it. You were going to let me marry him, then divorce me once you were ready to go public. How thoughtful. David's composure finally cracked. We're losing everything because of you. My company, my reputation, Your consequences, I finished, not my problem. Sarah, please. Jessica's voice broke. David's family has disowned him. My parents won't speak to me. We can't get financing for the business expansion because banks consider us morally compromised. Maybe you should have considered that before spending 3 years lying to everyone. You don't understand the pressure we were under. I understand perfectly. You wanted all the benefits of a relationship without any of the commitment or honesty. You used me as your cover story while you figured out your feelings. I stood up, walking to the window. The problem is, actions have consequences. and lies eventually catch up to the people who tell them. David joined me at the window, staring down at his building in the distance. I lost the Morrison account yesterday. 20 million in revenue gone. They said they couldn't trust someone who conducts his personal life with such deception. That's unfortunate. Sarah, I know I hurt you. I know I made mistakes, but destroying my life won't fix yours. I turned to face him, seeing clearly for perhaps the first time the weak, selfish man I'd once thought was my soulmate. David, I didn't destroy your life. I simply stopped participating in the lie that was holding it together. What do you want? Jessica demanded, her facade finally cracking. Money? An apology? Public acknowledgement of what we did? I want nothing from either of you. Then why? Why what? Why am I successful while you're failing? Why are my clients loyal while yours are fleeing? I walked back to my desk, my heels clicking on the marble floor. Because I learned something you haven't, that building something real requires honesty, integrity, and genuine care for the people you work with. David slumped into one of my client chairs without invitation. We could work together, pool our resources, help each other rebuild. No. Sarah, be reasonable. I am being reasonable. Reasonable people don't partner with individuals who've proven they'll lie, cheat, and manipulate when it serves their purposes. My desk phone rang. Marcus's voice came through the speaker. Sarah, the mayor's office, is holding on line 1 about the economic development proposal. I looked at David and Jessica, these two people who'd once controlled so much of my life, now sitting in my office begging for mercy I had no intention of granting. I need to take this call. Sarah, wait. David started to stand. No, we're done here. Marcus will show you out. I picked up the phone as they reluctantly moved toward the door. Good morning, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I've reviewed the development proposal. As I discussed a multi-million-dollar city contract, I watched David and Jessica exit my office, their shoulders slumped in defeat. Through my window, I could see protesters gathering outside David's building and subcontractors demanding payment for work his company couldn't afford to complete. The irony was perfect. In my previous life, David had slowly poisoned me while appearing to be the devoted husband. Now he was being destroyed by the very public exposure of his real character. No elaborate revenge required, just truth and time. After I hung up with the mayor, Marcus brought me the afternoon's mail. Among the letters was a formal invitation that made me pause. Richmond Construction cordially invites you to our liquidation auction. I tossed it in the trash and turned back to my computer, where emails from potential clients were stacking up faster than I could read them. That evening, I met Lisa at our favourite restaurant, a place David had always dismissed as too casual for someone of his status. I owe you an apology, Lisa said over her pasta. When all this started, I thought you were having some kind of breakdown. I was so wrong. You were protecting someone you cared about. That's not wrong. But I should have trusted you, should have seen what was really happening. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I'm proud of you, Sarah, for getting out, for building something amazing, for not letting them destroy you. They couldn't destroy me, I said simply, because I finally learned who I really was underneath all their manipulation. My phone buzzed with a breaking news alert. Richmond Construction files for bankruptcy. CEO cites personal scandals as contributing factor. I showed Lisa the headline, and we sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over a city where I'd built my empire from the ashes of someone else's lies. What happens now? Lisa asked. Now I keep building, keep growing, keep proving that sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's living well. 2 hours later, I was back in my apartment reviewing proposals for my company's expansion into 3 new cities. My phone rang one final time, David's number, which I'd never bothered to unblock. "Sarah, please. Jessica left me. The business is gone. My family won't speak to me. I have nothing left." "You have exactly what you gave me," I said calmly. "A chance to start over and do better." "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for everything." "I know you are. But, David, some things can't be fixed with apologies. Some bridges can't be rebuilt once you've burned them. I loved you. I know it doesn't seem like it, but I did love you in my way. Your way was never enough, and now it's too late." I hung up and blocked his number permanently. Outside my window, the city sparkled with possibility. Tomorrow, I would sign 3 new contracts, hire 5 new employees, and move one step closer to the media empire I'd always dreamed of building. I'd been given a second chance at life, and I wasn't wasting a single moment of it. David and Jessica had taught me the most valuable lesson possible, that the only person you can truly depend on is yourself. That real strength comes not from having someone else make your decisions, but from having the courage to make your own. I died once as someone else's victim. I was living now as my own hero, and this time I was writing my own happy ending.